Did I hear someone just say,
Is bad bitch o'clock?
if you want to be a bad bitch from the inside out, this video will show you what is inner confidence. We'll talk about proving yourself wrong, values and validation, building a support system, and have you ever wondered why so many women struggle with self-esteem and low confidence? It might have to do with patriarchy and capitalism. More hot takes on those two near the end of my video. Stay tuned. Why inner confidence? So there's two types of confidence. There's internal confidence and external confidence. External confidence is typically appearance, status, wealth, and it's really important if you want to fake it till you make it, and that's a totally valid strategy. But faking it till you make it and external confidence is temporary because at the end of the day, you still have your insecurities and your inner critic. Internal confidence, on the other hand, comes from your values, your self-respect and self-love. And it doesn't matter what you look like, who you're with, you can keep your internal confidence with you, and that's why it's so important. As women, we're constantly pressured by society to be perfect, and we can internalize this pressure and develop an immensely negative inner critic and really focus on our flaws instead of looking at ourselves holistically and appreciating our strengths. So honestly, screw our negative inner critic. It's time we really focus on our strengths. It can be really hard for us to think about what our strengths are because most of the time our inner critics are screaming at us like, you are a loser, you're not good at public speaking, or you're not successful, whatever your inner critic says. Like, it's screaming at you all the time and we don't really notice all our strengths that are hiding down there. So the first thing I want you to do is label your inner critic. Realize your inner critic is not you. And those self-limiting beliefs are not real facts. If you create mental space between your negative internal critic and yourself, you create room for self-awareness. And we can use that self-awareness to refocus your energy on your strengths and positive, uplifting thoughts instead of giving your energy to those nagging, negative inner critic thoughts. So label your inner critic and tell it, thank you, no thank you.
Thank you.
It's time to prove your negative inner critic wrong. It's time to start gathering some facts. Gather evidence about what your strengths are and gather evidence to disprove your negative internal critic. Because oftentimes your critical voice, those are not facts. Those are self-limiting beliefs. One great way to gather evidence is to speak to your friends, family, or even coworkers. So personally, growing up in high school, I always thought I was socially awkward, I didn't know how to talk to people, and that translated to feeling really uncomfortable with networking. I didn't think I knew how to network. I didn't know how to influence people. And that self-perception really changed when I had a yearly performance review with my manager. And one of the things she said about me was that I was really good at networking and building relationships with people in the organization. That shocked me so much. Hearing this from my manager was a really solid fact that helped me disprove my self-limiting belief that I was awkward, I couldn't network, I didn't know how to build relationships or influence people. Like, with this evidence now, I'm like, hell yeah, I can network, I can build relationships, I can influence people. Another example of gathering evidence is literally my friends telling me to launch this YouTube channel and share my experience with negotiating, communicating, and etc. at work. Because honestly, sometimes we be so blind to our actual strengths. Sometimes you don't even know your strengths are strengths because that's just how you are. You think it's normal. But when you start talking with others, they can highlight what your strengths and skills that really stand out are. Because growing up with an assertive role model, shout out to my mom, I always thought it was so normal to negotiate and be assertive at work. But after speaking with so many female coworkers, I realized it was a special skill that I had that I could then share out with other women. Another great way to figure out what your strengths are is to take a personality test. I recommend taking the VIA 24 strengths test. It took me 5 to 10 minutes, and here you can see some of my results. By doing this inner strength discovery work, you're literally improving your self-awareness 10x. It's a win-win situation. Now, when your inner negative critic comes up, you can tell it to Because, girl, you have a bunch of amazing strengths waiting to be highlighted, waiting to be discovered. So get out there and gather some evidence to prove your inner critic wrong. Another aspect of building your internal confidence is knowing who you are and what you stand for. Because if you know your values, you will literally stop caring about what other people think, what their values are. It will just literally not matter anymore because you know who you are. Everyone has values. No values are right or wrong, even though society will try and convince you otherwise. And your values can change over time as you grow, you have certain life experiences, and you learn more about yourself. Another benefit of knowing who you are and what your values are is you will start seeking people and opportunities out that align and match with your values instead of trying to conform and fit in with the values of people around you. Don't mold yourself to your environment. Find the environment and the people where you can be your best self. And those are the environments where people are likely to have very similar values. More later on cutting out toxic people and toxic energy. So, story time. For the longest time in my early 20s, I thought I valued status, wealth, and productivity. And if you know anything about me, that's not what I currently value. So I went to business school where I drank the Kool-Aid and everyone talked about getting into management consulting, investment banking, making it, or like creating a startup and getting on like 30 under 30 lists. So I didn't really know who I was in my early 20s, and I wasn't really strong in my values. Being in the business school environment, I just kind of secondhand absorbed their values, and those values just kind of became my values. So later on, when I was 25 and working my first corporate job, I felt really insecure, inadequate, because I felt like I'm not on a 30 under 30 list. I'm not a startup founder. I don't work in management consulting, iBanking. Like, what am I doing with my life? And then I decided to do a startup. So I started an e-commerce startup. Shout out if anyone remembers Rebubble Cup. Yes, I created reusable bubble tea cups for a very brief time. And having that elusive startup founder title didn't add any value or joy to my personal life because it wasn't aligned with my personal values. Once I did some inner work and realized what my values are, I don't care about title, status, wealth, and productivity. So now I don't care what my business school classmates might think about me because I don't share their values or the business school's values of like status, wealth, productivity, etc. I have my own values, so I don't even care what they think about me anymore. Personally, my top 3 values are freedom, aka agency. I want the ability, the means to do what I want. Number 2 is health. I really care about my health, and that's prioritizing sleep, nutrition, and exercise. And then my 3rd value is community. I really care about surrounding myself with people that I like and contributing back to my community. So now that I know my top 3 values, I'm able to better make decisions, and I really know who I am, and it helps me stop giving a damn about what other people think, especially my business school classmates. So I challenge you to really look inside, explore, and reflect on your values. A really good place to start is this list. There's 31 core values in this list, and they describe high level what each value is. So block out an evening, grab a journal, grab a nice cup of tea, and take some time to reflect on what values really speak to you. And bonus tip, why not make it a fun night in with some friends and some snacks where you can all journal together, listen to some music, and good vibes. So now we've addressed how to tell your inner critic to bye-bye-bye. And we've also addressed how to know who you are and what values you have to stop caring about what other people think. Now you've built up all this good energy. You want to keep it that way, and it's time to focus on building a really good support system and cutting out negative people and energies from your life. It's important to find people who share your values, support you, and make you feel good. Because honestly, even if you build up your internal confidence, external confidence, if you're surrounded 24/7 with toxic people and a draining environment, that's going to be giving fuel to your negative inner critic, and we do not want it to be thriving. We do not want to be giving it any energy. One thing that helps is really opening up and talking about your values with your current friends. You never know who might share values and really add to the conversation, help you reflect deeply on your values too. So what I started doing with two of my friends, we started a small book club, which I called Bad Bitches Book Club. And I've had so many inspiring conversations as we've read books and discussed spirituality, feminism, health, and we didn't know we had all these interesting thoughts until we read a couple of books together. You can also join groups and find groups that are aligned with your values and meet like-minded people. For example, I'm a mentor at an organization called Monday Girl. It's a group in Canada that's filled with professional young women who really love supporting each other in our careers. And I've met so many inspiring, talented, multifaceted, badass women who have just given me so many ideas about my own life and what I want to share on my channel and TikTok too. My last tip on surrounding yourself with a really good support system is finding a therapist if that fits within your budget. Even if you're talking to your friends, family, and community, a trained therapist can give you really interesting insights to combat your insecurities, your negative internal critic that you wouldn't have otherwise known. So I highly recommend taking a look into that. And that brings us to cutting out toxic people, one of my favorite topics. Don't get me wrong, friends who challenge you and bring different perspectives in your life are so important because you don't want to be living in an echo chamber. But if you find yourself in friendships where you're constantly being cut down, interrogated, having to defend yourself, and just leaving the conversations feeling really drained and bad about yourself, cut them out. Story time. For example, when I was 22, I was living with a roommate and I was working at a mid-sized consulting firm, just minding my own business. My roommate had a specific friend, we'll call her Jennifer. Whenever Jennifer would come over, she would complain about how she wasn't working in a top tier management consulting firm and like she needed to break into management consulting because if she wasn't doing management consulting or investment banking, she was a failure. And honestly, every time I was a part of those conversations, even though before the conversation I had no interest in management consulting or investment banking, leaving the conversation, I'd be like, oh shit, should I be trying to get into management consulting or investment banking? And like, if I'm not doing that, am I a failure? Like, what's happening? And I just felt like so bad about myself after all these conversations with her. And then I realized why I started feeling bad. It was because of her energy and the fact that we had very different values. And I'm not saying her values are right or wrong. We just had different values. And when I realized that those were not my values, I could take a step back and start removing myself from those situations. So honestly, every time she came over, I would just tell my friend like, oh, I have to go. Like I'm not available. And believe me, I felt so much better about myself when I wasn't surrounded by those conversations that made me feel like crap. Sometimes it's our family that's super toxic. As an Asian woman, I can't tell you how many Asian parents I know who tell their children, if you can't get into this school, you're gonna be a failure. If you can't get this grade, you're gonna be a failure. If you don't make it to this company or this career, like you're gonna be failures. And like a lot of people grow up hearing that, and that is so negative and detrimental to our inner confidence, our self-respect, and our own values. This is really difficult to navigate, especially if you're living at home, but it's really important to take time and space to create boundaries around that. And I just want to note that everyone's culture, family, and specific situation is unique, so I'm not going to go into too much depth there, but it is really important to create some boundaries for yourself. And overall, you want to really surround yourself with people that give you positive energy and make you feel uplifted, supportive, and have values that are aligned with yours. And if they're draining or fueling your negative inner critic, you know it's time to cut them out. Okay, now we get to my favorite spicy topic, which is patriarchy and capitalism. Why is it that so many women feel insecure and unconfident? Like, where is this all coming from? So, patriarchy and capitalism tell women that we're only conditionally accepted in society if we're nice, if we look pretty, and if we're productive. Patriarchy teaches women to be nice, to prioritize the needs of others above their own. Patriarchy also emphasizes physical appearance and often reduces our worth to just our physical appearance. Capitalism now ties our worth to productivity. And then also with consumerism, companies make money when they convince us that we're flawed, that we're fat, imperfect, ugly, whatever, so they can sell us products like makeup, clothes, dieting products, etc. And you know what? I say screw that. Let us stop absorbing all these garbage default narratives from society and take time to create our own values, create our own narratives. It's not your fault if you don't feel confident. You can blame capitalism and patriarchy. But now you have the knowledge and tools to start slowly building your inner confidence. Practice is key to changing years or maybe like a lifetime of these negative inner critic thoughts. So take time and be patient with it and be compassionate and loving towards yourself. And now for a recap. What did we cover in this video today? We covered what is inner confidence versus external confidence. We covered proving yourself wrong, why it's important to label your negative inner critic, why you should be gathering evidence about your strengths and gathering evidence to disprove your negative inner critic, and finding your strengths. We also covered why it's important to know what your values are so you stop caring what other people think. Then we covered building a support system and cutting out toxic people from your life. And lastly, we touched a little bit on my favorite topic of capitalism and patriarchy. Now that you know everything about inner confidence, if you want to build skills for external confidence, for speaking with confidence at work and being assertive and direct while still being kind, definitely watch this video next where I share 7 practical tips on how to speak with confidence at work. Bye!